So my SBA story goes back to the early 80s when SBA was just actually coming out of the direct lending program to a guaranteed program. And I was working for a commercial lender. I had moved to Florida from Boston. We had done participation loans with a bank. And I got very friendly with the senior lender of that bank, a guy named Peter McDougall. Peter said to me, "Hey, we're looking to expand our SBA lending division. Maybe you'd be interested in working with us over here." And I didn't know much about SBA. And he explained the program to me and he said, "It's a niche market. You know, you're a commercial lender, but this is something a little bit different. And we will teach you the program." And at the time, there were two preferred lenders in the state of Florida, just two. So Professional Savings Bank, which was the bank that actually Peter worked for and I was going to work for, and another lender. And so it was very early on in my SBA career that I started doing SBA lending. Back then, interestingly enough, for the people that are listening, that the maximum guarantee was $500,000. And then I remember it being changed to $2 million and then obviously now to the $5 million. But when I first started out, it was $500,000. And back then, banking was really limited to the areas you were working in. So when we were doing SBA lending, they were truly for the benefit of small businesses, for people who were buying franchises, for people that were expanding, for people who were buying another business, for people that wanted to startups. We did a lot of startup lending back then. And it was very interesting because I still remember the pamphlets that the SBA used, because back then, when you actually got training, you went to the SBA district offices, which I did, and that's where you got trained. There wasn't, today everybody knows what NAGLE is, but back then there wasn't anything such as NAGLE. In fact, my career goes back long enough that I remember meeting with Tony Wilkinson when he was starting to form NAGLE. And I was at his actually very first meeting, which was held in Miami, when he was starting NAGLE. So my SBA story goes way back, and it's been a terrific 40 plus years in the SBA industry now at this point. And it's something that I've always been passionate about and continue to be passionate about. I guess the story that really started for me was way back when I had worked with a gentleman who had a small kosher kitchen. And he came to me and said, "Bruce, I'm looking to buy another kosher kitchen and I'm looking for an SBA loan." And we were able to facilitate that. About a year later, he came and he wanted another SBA loan. And we were able to do that. Now, remember, the cap was very small. So these were very small loans that we were doing. But as he was growing, the SBA was expanding and they grew the cap to $2 million. So that allowed us to give him another loan. And I just remember that story because we ended up doing 3 SBA loans for him in total. He won Small Business of the Year. I remember that. It was just a tremendous story. And after I worked with him, I decided that I wanted to go out and do this and help more people than just what the bank was working on. So I decided to break away from the banking business and started my own consulting firm. And so I was a new startup and I decided, well, I might need some money. Should I go to get an SBA loan? But back then, if you were in the packaging business, you weren't eligible to apply for an SBA loan. So I could not even apply for an SBA loan. And I shared the story recently on Twitter on how I established credit to get my business going. And I had that business for a total of 13 years. But I think in that 13 years, I helped a tremendous amount of entrepreneurs buy a business, grow their business, get into business, expand their business, buy real estate, and really encapsulated all the functions of what the SBA was providing. I ended up going back into the banking business. I got a great opportunity to go to work for a bank who was starting a new SBA division that was moving into Florida. And with a very close friend of mine, we went to work there and we grew that bank and it was really, really successful. And I decided that this was really, I really enjoyed the startup aspect and building, because that's what I was used to doing. I built my own business. I really got passionate about being able to help a bank grow. And I was working in the banking industry. I had come back, and in 2014, I got an opportunity to meet a person that literally, I think, changed my life in the world of what it is that I do today and why I'm successful in helping so many people obtain SBA loans. The story goes, I was at a FLAGL conference, which was the Florida Association of Government Guaranteed Lenders, like NAGL. And they had a gentleman there named Nick Nanton. He was a guest speaker. And Nick spoke about how people want to deal with celebrities. And he wrote a book called Celebrity Branding You. And the premise of the book was that if you become a celebrity, people will come to you rather than you having to go out to people. And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. Wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to, as a BDO, go out and develop business? People came to me. I'm like, well, I'm going to read this book and I'm going to drill down and see if this works. Anyway, I got the opportunity to read the book and get to know Nick. Nick taught me a lot about being an entrepreneur, even though I had been one for 13 years. But he taught me how to basically reach the marketplace by letting people know what it is that I do and how I can help them. The premise is if you become an expert at what you do, people will seek you out rather than you having to go out to get clients. In all the SBA loans that I had done, I really loved the thought of helping a person buy a business, whether he owned one or whether he was working for a company, 30-year career, and decided, now I want to change. I'm in my 50s, and it's now time to own my own business. And so I started working with Nick, got really into celebrity branding, how to brand myself, and came up with what I've been quoted in the Wall Street Journal as being a specialist, become an expert in that specialty, and then letting the marketplace know what it is you do and what you don't do. 10 years ago, I got an opportunity to get into what they call search fund lending. And search fund lending is really those two words, search and fund. It's where you have a lot of entrepreneurs that have gone to business school, maybe Wharton, Harvard, Stanford, Kellogg. A lot of them are people that are coming out of the military, taking the military benefit, going back to school, and then going out and searching for a business to buy. And after they have found one, they then bring in investors to bring in the equity. And then from that standpoint, they then go to the bank to get the rest of the money that they need to buy the business. It's called search fund lending. And I got an opportunity to work with a Harvard graduate 10 years ago this year. And after I made my first search fund loan, I decided that was it. I didn't want to do anything else but search fund lending. For the past 10 years, that's basically what I've been doing. I've been doing search fund lending. The reason I love it, the reason I'm passionate about it is it's being impactful. Literally, you're changing people's lives. The SBA is a great tool. It's the greatest tool in my mind to help people achieve the American dream. And I recently closed a loan last year. A gentleman who is not originally from the United States, came to the United States, went to school here, got his citizenship, and had been working in corporate for about 15 years. And he decided that he wanted to try to buy a business. And we met originally in October of 23. He was in his search, and we ended up closing a loan for him in December of 24. So 14 months later. And in those 14 months, I really got a great opportunity to meet him and see what he went through to try to find and acquire a business. And it was a lot of work. He had looked at a lot of transactions. He had gotten close on several of them, signed LOIs, went through the whole diligence process, spent a lot of money, and then the deal doesn't work out because there's no guarantee it is. We recently had an opportunity to chat, and he had shared with me, he said, you know, I'm living the American dream because of you. You have been there for me for the past 14 months, every step of the way. You've guided me. You've helped me buy this business. And now I am going to change the trajectory of my family and my family's life by acquiring this business all through an SBA loan. So it's stories like that. And I know when people hear about SBA and think about that and say, oh, that's nice, but it's real. It's a real story. You're affecting real people. The SBA continues to change the SOP to try to enhance the program and do what's right by the folks that are utilizing the program to help them expand and to grow and to get working capital and the access to money that they need to fulfill their dreams. That's what keeps me passionate about SBA lending. At this point in my career, I've been doing it a long time. I spoke with my wife the other night. We went out for dinner and we were talking about it. And she said, do you envision yourself working for a lot longer? And I said, yeah, because I'm making a difference every day I get up and I go to work. I'm making a difference in somebody's life. And that's very empowering for me as an individual. It gives me my purpose for getting up every day and doing what it is that I do. And that's what I love about SBA lending. Several years ago, after closing a loan for a borrower in the Dallas area, after we had closed the loan, the borrower had reached out to me and said, you really helped me. You helped me and my partner acquire this business. It was a sod business, the artificial sod business. He said, I want to tag you on Twitter. And I said, okay. He said, what's your handle? And I said, I don't have one. I'm not on any type of social media. He said, well, Bruce, you really need to because it's got a phenomenal SMB, small to medium business community. And you can have an impact on a lot of people by being in front of the community and having outreach to a lot more people than you do today. He introduced me to Twitter and I started to post. And one Saturday morning, I got up early because maybe the word might be aggravated. I was in a transaction. It was a very large transaction. It was a $5 million deal, and the deal blew up. I felt really sorry for the borrower. He had spent a lot of money on his due diligence fees. He had spent a lot of money on his attorney fees, the bank fees. He had about $35,000 into this transaction, and he lost it. When you're a searcher, that's a lot because a lot of these young gentlemen coming out of, or ladies coming out of the private equity world or coming out of the corporate, they don't have a lot of money to begin with. So it was a lot. So I decided that I wanted to share that story to maybe help others not go through what he had done. And so I shared the story. It was 6:45 on a Saturday morning. And I put it out on Twitter, a thread. And I put my phone down. And the next thing I know, I just heard ding, ding, ding. And my phone blew up and I ended up getting 500 new followers in that day. And I was like, wow, maybe this is, maybe people like stories. So the next Saturday came and I decided, well, maybe instead of posting something about SBA, I'll write another little story. I've got a lot of them. Literally in my career, I've closed over 1,350 SBA transactions. So there's a lot of stories there, good and bad. I entitled it War Story Saturday because it feels like you're in war sometimes when you're in these transactions and you're fighting hard to get them done and you're working with the underwriter and you're working with the closer, you're working with the lender, you got the loan. There's a lot of people. You're working with your investors, you're working with your attorneys. There's a lot of people pulling at the purse strings. So I labeled it War Story Saturday. This was in April of 2022 when I first got onto Twitter. And now here it is, almost April of 2025, so 3 years later. And I now am just shy of 35,000 followers. And my impact through those War Story Saturdays, affecting as many people as I can who want to learn about SBA, who want to learn about search fund financing, who want to understand everything good about SBA, everything bad that can happen at transaction. I can't say anything bad SBA because nothing bad SBA. But want to basically help them maybe avoid the pitfalls. So the legacy and the mark that I want to leave is maybe not so specific to the SBA industry, but to those people that are looking to acquire a business, because my passion is to basically have that transition from the baby boomers, which I am a part of, and these folks that have had a legacy business for maybe 25, 30 years that now want to exit. Maybe they don't have family members that want to take it over, or maybe they don't feel like the management team wants to buy the business, but that small businesses still have to exist, right? So back in the day when you made an SBA loan, you literally, when you were filling out the Form 4I, was how you had to state that you were preserving the existence of a small business concern. Those were the words that you had to use, that if the business was being sold, it wasn't just being sold for the sake of the seller earning a lot of money, that you literally were going to save jobs. You were literally going to keep a business in the community. You were going to maybe expand so that people would get new jobs and the IRS will get tax money. Remember, that's why they originally started the program back in the early 50s. It was to generate growth and generate wealth and generate tax dollars, and that was the basis of it. So preserving the existence of a small business concern, those words that I learned very, very early, 40 years ago in my SBA career, are still in the forefront of my mind every day, because that's what I'm doing. So I think for me, the legacy I would love to leave with eventually when I do, whenever that might be, was Bruce impacted a lot of people. He helped a lot of people who were looking to buy a business or acquire a business, and he always did it with them in mind, not him. I'm Bruce Marks, and I am SBA.